I call this regular meeting of the Village of Villa Park Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Roll call, Calvert,
Here?
Hofstra. Here. Jackson. Lemieux,
Here.
Budke,
Here.
Orlowski, Romano, Schlinsky.
Here.
I too am present. With that, we have quorum. First item here to be approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 8th, 2024?
I move to approval.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. So just a quick explanation of how each of these agenda items will work this evening. We'll start with presentation of staff, and then presentation of the petitioner, if they have a presentation this evening, and then public comment, if there is any. Questions from the commission, then discussion and comments by the commission, and then action if necessary. So I would ask that anyone who's going to speak on any agenda item this evening or thinks they might, please stand, raise your right hand. We'll get you sworn in real quick. It only takes a second, and you won't have to do it later. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in these proceedings is the truth?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so our first item is PZ 2413 for 1110 South Villa Avenue, special use. Petitioner Matthew Toper, FGM Architects. Whenever you're ready, Michelle.
The application tonight is for Albright Middle School for a special use. This is on 1110 South Villa Avenue. As mentioned, I'll go over a summary of their request, allow for any comments from the petitioner, allow for the commission to ask any questions, returning for commission discussion and motion if appropriate. This is an existing middle school. The petitioner is currently proposing front and rear additions to the school. The commission tonight is only reviewing the special use. This property was annexed into Villa Park in 1958 via Ordinance 694. And at that time, a special use was not approved. So the school's been operating without a special use. Tonight, we're requesting that special use be approved as part of additional site alteration requests. They're proposing 2 additions to the school, an addition on the east side of the school as an entry element into the school, and then removal and replacement of the gymnasium, which with a slightly larger footprint than currently exists today. So on the screen in the gray is the existing school footprint. On what is going to be the bottom side, which is the east side of the school, is the entry feature addition, and then on the west side is the additional gymnasium space. They're also going to be installing 3 accessible parking stalls on the east side, accessible from Villa Avenue, and a new landscaping island that would be installed between the existing on-street parking and those accessible stalls. They have provided sample elevations for the building and the additions. On the west elevation, this is the new gymnasium. And then the new east addition on the east side of the school. No other changes are occurring to the existing building. They are proposing a new sign along the east entry element. As noted in the staff report, this isn't currently code compliant, and staff will work with the applicant to come up with a code compliant option. When staff was looking at it, this sign may only be reduced in height by 1 to 2 inches, so it will be very similar still in size, but slightly smaller so that they don't need a zoning variation for this sign. They have provided renderings of those new additions. And then we also have preliminary engineering plans, which our engineering department has reviewed, and then their plot of survey if needed for reference. On the screen are the standards for the special use review and approval. We will have a public comment period, and then staff has prepared a sample motion if appropriate tonight. And with that, staff or the applicant can answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any presentation by the petitioner beyond staff's presentation this evening? It doesn't have to be.
No,
It's
we
just,
don't really have
it's just an opportunity.
a presentation. I just would like to say,
Do you want to come up? to the
Yeah, if you could just come up here a minute and then just state your name so the recording secretary has that, that would be great.
hello, everyone. I'm Amy Zaire. I am the superintendent of Salt Creek School District and Albright Middle School. Along with our other schools, we're looking to do some building upgrades. What we have some things planned for inside the building, like our washrooms are probably built the same that were when the school was built. So it's time for some upgrades. The school is beautifully built. It's a very solid building. We have great HVAC systems and roofing is very solid, nice brick building, but it wasn't built for a day and age for safety and security reasons. We have the need for a secure vestibule. Right now, we are the only schools in the area that do not have, well, our schools are safe, our kids are safe. However, we need that entry sequence to make sure people are properly screened before they get into anywhere near the students. And right now, we have 2 separate entrances, which can also be difficult for accessibility features. Having anyone with a wheelchair, there is no elevator in the building. There is accessible parking on one end, but if you have to go to the other end where the district office is, it could also be very confusing as to where to go. So we are, for Albright Middle School, for today's purposes, we do have, an addition to the front entry, and the gym is also built in a different day and age where the sidelines and the students are running into the wall. We do have padding around the wall to try to keep it safe, but when you have families and everyone coming to the games, it is very old and outdated. The locker room, everybody knows about our locker rooms, and they're quite historic. Let's just put it that way. I will not speak in architecture terms today, but I will bring our partners with FGM, Matt Toper, in to explain some of the work that we're doing.
Thank you for the time. I'm Matt Tupper with FGM Architects. I'll keep it brief because the preview of everything was pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted to express that this has been the process of about a 3-year master plan process that we've been working with the district for their kind of realignment for their curriculum. Like Amy said, that addition off of Villa is really the main point is safety and security for entry sequence and accessibility. So there's a ramp and an elevator that will now be brought into the school because that first floor level is actually about 3 feet below grade, and then the second level is above. So you're kind of, most of these entries that come in, you're entering on a split level already. So this entry sequence is really to bring you back down to that main entry level, bring the school office to an area. Right now, it's on the second floor across a hallway, so it brings that school office more to the front of Villa Avenue for visibility and that security sequence. But that addition still is behind that setback line of 15 feet for the side yard. So we're not encroaching or asking for a variance for that addition. The gymnasium on the other side, again, is within the variance or within the setback of 15 feet for that side yard, as well as kind of reconfiguring the dumpster that's now going to be attached to the building, as mentioned in the report. And then the only other thing that I would like to add is that after this whole process, the building will be fully sprinkled as well, because just the size of the building is warranting these additions. So most of these improvements are really intended to, increase the safety, security, and health and well-being of, the whole facility, and then provide a little bit more expansion so the district gets a little more usable space, a little more educational punch out of what's going on here. So, as she mentioned, the sign was kind of, the letters were drawn as they were. We've already kind of gone through an exercise to bring it down from 1'4" height to 1'2", which brings the total square footage to 31 square feet, which I believe is below the 32 requirement. So we're kind of already in process. And I'd like to add that the staff has been remarkable through this whole process, very agreeable and very helpful, ushering us through the process and working through to make sure that we can work through this as smoothly as possible. So I don't want to, belabor the situation or the condition too much, but it's been a great process to go through, and we hope for a, forward positive outcome for referendum approval, and moving forward with this come November and next year. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Right. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Just come up here, state your name and...
Good evening, John Jasek. I'm a resident of District 48. I live across the street from Albright for the last 54 years. I was on the Board of Education for 8 years also, a while back. Now, I understand the needs, especially for the entryways. The society that we're living in today, we have to guard everything. And that school does not have a secure entry. So that's got to be taken care of, as well as the other two buildings. The thing that disturbs me is the increase in that gym coming back further out towards the street. We got a monolith sitting there now, since we lost most of our trees in the last few years. The ones in the parkway that the village took down because of disease or weather, damage, age. And all you got is this big brick thing sitting there. There's nothing that shields it from the neighborhood. It doesn't blend in anymore. They removed all the trees on the south side where the field is because nobody wanted to take care of them, I guess. We lost trees along Harrison when they put the new fancy brick paving for parking in, best parking lot in the village. We lost the trees on the west side of the building where you're going to put this gym extension. We used to have planter boxes there with 4 trees in them. They eliminated all that, put more parking in. So there's very little landscaping or trees to blend the building into the neighborhood. And it looks terrible. And this is going to make it look worse. That's all I have, guys.
All right, thank you. All right. Anyone else from the public? All right, see anyone, so questions?
I do have a few questions. Looking at the plans, it does look like there's some demolition that's going to be required in order to get a full-size gym. Is that correct? Okay, that's kind of what I thought. I'd like to comment on the subject regarding the conditions of operation, in particular during construction. Safety and security is always a big issue. And one thing I would like a commitment, and I think you probably already have that, for at least general requirements in the specifications regarding phasing and construction activities. When they would be starting, and then the things, the protection that would need to be provided during the demolition. If the demolition, if there's certain demolition that's going to occur during school hours or off hours, and that should be outlined in the general requirements. Also, the fire safety, emergency egress during construction, you're eliminating one egress point. So that has to be thought out and it has to be practiced. The exit signage has to be adjusted during construction. And I guess it sounds like there is no fire sprinklers at this time, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, but there's probably smoke detectors, and then some live pull stations, and those will have to be adjusted for the construction. Also, during construction, you want to make sure that there's dust-proof partitions. You want to protect the kids from any hazardous dust, so that has to be done. Security during construction, especially if you have temporary partitions, there should be locks or something should be determined so that there's no free access into the building during school operations. It's a concern. So those are the type of things, and typically the architects do cover that in general requirements, and I'd just like to hear that is being covered.
Yes, that is, and as well as the district has partnered with a construction manager as well already, so the builder is already on board and reviewing the plans and reviewing the sequence of operations. So, yes, free egress is always going to be of utmost. The way that the schedule is working out is the addition that's toward Villa Avenue will start construction when the weather breaks in March or April, and that's all going to be outside the building. That is a stairway that's coming out on that side, but there is another stair that's on the inside of that, kind of the location right here. There's an exit stair here, as well as one on the end of the building and another one on this side and the other side. So this stair kind of being out of service does not impede any other life safety egress outside the building. But then, so that construction of the addition only on that area starts, upon approval of referendum, March, April of 2025, continues through summer of 2025, and is scheduled to be, and the interior work and all the work inside the building is scheduled to be done by August of 2025. Now, the gymnasium gets demolished in that summer when there's not students present, and then that construction will then last through until August of 2026. So those egress pathways and everything will be adjusted through the summer of 2025 so that as the construction's going on for the gymnasium, all those provisions will be put in place to make sure life safety egress and everything is maintained while the gym is under construction, while students are present in the building. That would be the only time that construction would be going on while students are present, March, April through the beginning of summer for the addition that's outside the building line, but that could be segregated out. But yes, all the provisions that you mentioned about life safety and the fire systems and detection and sprinkler systems will all be put in the general requirements. The temporary dust control measures and all that stuff will be written into the specifications for the construction manager to follow.
It would also be nice if there was something, a partnership with like the village. Usually because of the changes in egress, right at the start of the construction, you would want to practice a fire escape or a security, immediately, like within the first week of activities, so that the fire department and the police can witness,
The modified procedures.
the modified procedure. And then, I was just going to ask, is there any change for the bus pickup and then also the parent pickup?
At this time, there's not any circulation changes that are expected where the buses are. The only small shift would be, I believe there's special education buses park here to come in, but I believe that program is, as part of this master plan process, that program might be not located within the building anymore. So those special education buses might not even be present on site, but even if they did come, they would just kind of move into a zone that's in front of the main entry to come in. But that would be the only circulation change. So parent drop-off, parent parking, bus drop-off and pickup would be exactly as it is right now.
One last question, hopefully, is staging area for contractors and the storage of materials and where they would have their equipment. Is that designated?
I think that's still a conversation that we're having with the construction manager, but I believe since that construction is going on, mainly focusing around the gym during school, I believe, and we've already kind of worked through with the district staff, that for that period of time, the district athletic department might be out of use of the asphalt play area. And that asphalt play area is getting recontoured as part of this as well anyway, so whatever happens in that temporary laydown area, that asphalt's going to be getting redone. And I believe the physical education staff has already said that they are happy to lose the gym for a while to get the result of the new gym, and then they will use the southern grass area to the utmost that they can, because there is, from the school, there's also, a couple years ago, we added a hallway in here, so there's a direct access from the school out to this area directly off the south facade of the building. So they don't have to really come close to any of the construction period that's going on to then utilize that south lawn for educational purposes.
Okay, it sounds very well thought out and planned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding I guess it's the west, behind the gym. Currently, looks like roughly half of that parkway is paved in some way, shape, or form, asphalt, concrete, so on. The plan seems to be showing the reestablishment of a curb cut, and in the elevations you're showing, in the renderings you're showing grass. Is that something that's actually happening, or is it remaining as is?
At this point in time, I think there's parking stalls here that are kind of all out or inboard on the property from this sidewalk line. Us having this building come up to just short of the building setback line doesn't offer enough parking spot depth for there to be parking there anymore. So this would be the opportunity. We would still need a hard surface to get here, to get to the loading dock area that's currently still a loading dock, and then the trash enclosure. So yes, this area could turn from pavement to grass and landscape, because there isn't any space to really put parking stalls that won't overhang the sidewalk of the right-of-way. So kind of as shown would be intended to not be a paved surface anymore. And then this line coming in is just access into the play surface area for district maintenance use.
Okay, and the reason I ask is that, as the neighbor acknowledged, and I don't know where you live relative to the gymnasium, but. Across the street. Okay, that's what I was curious about. There are 3 street trees on that entire frontage. Now, obviously you can't put street trees where there's pavement, but it would seem to me that with the addition of this gym, and if you're contemplating removing pavement, there would be an opportunity for some street trees and some landscaping.
Most definitely.
I don't know if that's something we would want to condition. I guess we'll need to discuss that, and I'll discuss that with Mark. But that's really the only question I have. Are there other questions?
When you say you're gonna regrade that paved area on the west side, are they gonna level that off? Right now, at spots, it's probably 3 feet above the sidewalk.
It'll still end up having a retaining wall rebuilt, because it'll still be 3 feet above the 3 feet or so above the sidewalk. The intent of regrading it is to provide that paving area to have a less than 2% slope in any direction, so that the whole play surface could be considered accessible. Right now, there's about a almost 4 to 5% slope, just following the topography that's been there for however long the school's been around, from east to west. And so we're going to be leveling it off a little bit more so that we can flatten that paving surface to make it considered accessible throughout that paving area. And there's going to be a series of steps on property, and then that retaining wall is going to get rebuilt. Just because of how the grading works out, we can't bring it all the way down to sidewalk line.
Currently along Myrtle, there's a stretch just from the existing building that they parallel park along.
They do,
The
yes.
paved area. Is that going to be maintained?
I guess that's one of those things that we've always, I think in this plan, those stalls are kind of exist in this zone, so they'll be kind of redone and probably abandoned, because we'll be having this drive coming in where that paving is, and then this is probably existing grass that would remain grass. We're not, the parking stalls that are here and then parked parallel along Myrtle, I don't think we've ever factored into our parking calculations, so we figured that we were going to lose them, and we're not trying to recreate them somewhere else. Because I think based on the calculation that was done, we have 58 stalls available with 41 required, so we're still within the requirement for what's needed for this site.
It just seems like we're just going for the special use here today, is that's correct. And based on what's being presented, it also seems like there's going to be no subsequent variations required then as part of the building? Okay. Because we're within the setbacks, and the sign was the other one that was, which we're going to bring ourselves back into alignment with. Great.
Chair, may I?
Yes.
Regarding street trees along that frontage that we're discussing,
Yeah.
there's a 27-inch utility pipe underneath that parkway. And trees begin when the pipe turns. So that entire frontage is the reason there's no trees.
And I said there were 3, but on the ground, there's actually only 1. There's 3 on the plan, but there's 1 on the ground.
Near the south.
I mean, I don't know, I'm looking at Google Street View, maybe there were 2 planted since
Yeah.
then.
Near the south end, approximately 75 feet south of the building, is when that pipe takes a hard left. And you see the easement that cuts across the field? Yeah. And then you got 1, 2, 3.
That's why. That's why.
And
Yep.
then it goes
Yep.
up
And
the
then-
parkway.
And then, yep, and then hang a right. Yep. And it's 27-inch pipe in the parkway. That solves the riddle.
Well, that's less than ideal.
Well, but we still have 15 feet
There it is.
Yeah.
between the building and the
Yes.
property, and the side, 16 to the front sidewalk,
On
right?
the private property side, in lieu of street trees,
You can get it to,
because of the unique configuration, that would be a perfectly reasonable condition.
So are there any other questions for the applicant? Any closing comments before we move into discussion? No? Okay. How does everyone feel about a condition related to landscape in that 15-foot area between the sidewalk and the gym where it's appropriate? And how would you like to have that worded?
Just like that, where appropriate within the 15-foot setback. And then we'll work with them. Tree selection can come later. It's not that big of an area. So you want-
Right.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? All right, then whoever wants to make that motion.
Make a motion to recommend approval of PZ 2413 for a special use for a school as shown in Exhibit A located at 1110 South Villa Avenue, conditioned with landscaping where appropriate within the 15-foot setback on the west side of the property.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any questions, comments on the motion? All right, roll call vote. Calvert,
Yes.
Hofstra,
Yes.
Lemieux,
Yes.
Budke,
Yes.
Shalinski.
Yes.
I too vote yes, and with that, our recommendation will pass the village board, and they have the final action on this. Good luck. Yeah. You guys don't have to stay.
You're welcome to.
Stay, yeah.
I mean,
Nobody's
you want to
kicking
hear
you
us
out.
talk about text amendments, you're
Yeah.
welcome to, but you're not required to.
But that 27-inch pipe tells you what.
Okay, the next item is PZ 2414, text amendment for Article 6, 13, and 14, text amendment, petitioner, Village of Villa Park.
Yes, thank you. So, as mentioned, this is amending 3 different articles. This is to try and address some comments that we've received in variation requests that we've reviewed recently. So Article 6 is for uses, specifically accessory uses and structures. This is amending the non-residential accessory structure section, mainly to address the second floor additions to currently single-story residences that are within the existing required side yard setback, to allow those homeowners to go straight up vertically without requesting a variance. Article 13 is for nonconformities. This is to change some wording within that nonconforming section for uses, structures, lots, and development features. And then Article 14 is modification to definitions due to some of those existing changes mentioned in Article 6 and 13. So I'll go through each of the individual articles that we're changing, starting with uses and the accessory use and structure section. We changed staff titles to be consistent with prior changes made at the village board to be consistent with current staff titles used across the village. Changed the non-residential accessory structure to permit them to be greater than 100 square feet. Currently, if a restaurant wanted to do a outdoor dining area, we would have to cap it at a 10 by 10 area, which doesn't quite make sense when we want to foster business development, etc. We would also be removing the quantity restriction within that section from 1 to allow any number. This would allow restaurants to have 2 outdoor dining locations or accessory storage structures on other properties for their specific use, anything to that nature. We would also be adding addition of requirements for where those non-residential accessory structures could be placed on site. Moving to nonconformities, again, making corrections to staff titles to be consistent. On non-conforming lots, we added the clarification that non-conforming lots can be used for household living. That's a term used elsewhere within the code. Clarification that non-conforming lots may include uses that are compliant with the subject zoning district. Removing compliance of lot requirements for non-conforming lots. Confirmation that non-conforming lots cannot be expanded, enlarged, or increased. Uses cannot be expanded, enlarged, or increased in intensity, and removed other specifications for expansion. We renamed moving to relocation for both structures and uses. We revised to specify that non-conforming uses cannot be relocated on another portion of the same lot or any other lot. For the section of loss of nonconforming status of uses, we reduced the time frame for the time period of loss of nonconforming status, which was a year, and we changed it to 90 days. We eliminated the period of discontinuance for acts of God or accidental fire, and eliminated the planning and zoning authorization to approve reestablishment via special use procedures. For damage and destruction of uses, we revised to establish replacement is permitted when the damage to the structure is less than 50% of the replacement value, established a time frame for receiving a building permit, and established the replacement value of a legal nonconforming structure. Lastly, within that section, the damage and destruction of structures, we established that when the damage is greater than 50% of the replacement value, the structure may not be repaired or replaced, and then must be rebuilt to meet the requirements of the subject zoning district. Reestablish or revise to reestablish replacement is permitted when it has been damaged or destroyed less than 50% of the replacement value. And again, in this section, establishes how that replacement value is calculated. Lastly, in definitions in Article 14, removed accessory structure or use, added structure accessory, and clarified structure principal, and then created use accessory within the definition section. I do have the red line version. Should have received both the red line version and the clean version of the text amendment. We have prepared a sample motion if appropriate, but are open to any comments from the commission as well.
Right, questions?
Yes, the only one that's a lot of work, by the way. Thank you very much. The only one that jumped out based on the conversations of the side yard setback variances that we've had come through over the last handful of months is the 13.4.3. Eliminating the or vertically, can we chat about that? Because I first read that and I thought, well,
So
that seems like we're not,
So that is to permit the second story addition. So currently, it does not allow vertical expansions within the setback.
correct.
By removing the vertical wording, we would be permitting expansions vertically within that setback. So they'd be at if a 6-foot setback.
Oh, it
was
says me,
required,
okay.
And they're at 5 feet, they would be permitted to go straight up on their existing foundation within that 5-foot setback dimension.
Got it. Because the text says it may not be expanded,
Or
and that's our issue, is the may not, so,
Correct.
Got it.
Additionally, within this section, you'll notice that if a structure is non-conforming by less than 12 inches, so say in the instance, we had one recently where they were going straight up to a 2-story residence, also doing a rear addition, that we required them to kick over the addition by 1 foot. With construction methods, it makes more sense to allow them to continue that wall straight back.
Sure.
At a 5-foot setback. In that case, this section 13.4.3 also would allow them to do that at a 5-foot setback rather than kicking over and figuring out how to side
Yeah.
that 1-foot portion.
Can I make a suggestion that alteration and expansions be changed to be positive instead of negative? Because I also read it like Eric.
yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
yeah,
Instead of saying what you can't do,
say what you can.
it should say what's permitted as an expansion. Does that make sense? Am I wrong in that?
Because then in that instance, you'd be eliminating horizontally and you'd be keeping in vertically.
Because by eliminating one, you're not necessarily making the other allowed.
Right.
My only reservation right now is that I believe the entire section is written in the negative.
Tied to the knots.
That would be a little peculiar to have only one section be then in the positive, assuming that this lasts for, beyond our careers. Because then they'd be like, what was wrong with those guys? Why is this one in the positive? So that's my, sitting here as you ask me that, it loses the flow of what we're doing. Does the clean version make more sense when you read it without the red lines though?
No.
No? Okay. Well,
No, that's how I read it first.
Okay.
And I thought, because nowhere does it say that horizontal, that vertical, you know what
so we will also say that the text amendment has gone through legal review. And this is the only section that village attorney is going to add clarifying language to.
Okay.
So that could be, she may have picked up on the same thing that you saw.
Okay, so she looked at it today, so I'm just reading it. She did add a sentence at the end of that section which states, "A structure with a non-conforming setback may be expanded vertically, but only if the vertical expansion does not extend further into the required setback and does not exceed the maximum building height requirements applicable to the structure." I think that may address that it is specifically calling out the vertical expansion that you're concerned.
Because that's a positive statement within, after the not horizontal.
Can you read that sentence again?
Yes. A structure with a non-conforming setback may be expanded vertically, but only if the vertical expansion does not extend further into the required setback and does not exceed the maximum building height requirements applicable to the structure.
Yeah, I think that clarifies the point.
Yeah,
Because
so-
my issue with it was that we eliminate some things, but it didn't specifically say that vertical is permitted, and that's what that sentence is adding.
Correct.
Is that an extension of paragraph B?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because within subparagraph or paragraph B, you have certain sentences leading with the negative and others that are within the positive. So we have the first sentence in the negative, as is pointed out by Commissioners Lucky and Jarrett, and then the second sentence starts, however, if the setback is not conforming, it may be expanded within the positive. And then that third sentence that will be added by
Is also
council is also in
In
the positive.
Yes, and I think
For the-
he may be pulling up her changes.
Yeah, and it speaks to the vertical that was removed from
Correct.
paragraph B in those red lines. So I believe that the spirit of that it meets
Yeah.
what's been discussed.
Not really a question, but I'm glad to see the 50% added in the damage, because that was something that I was talking to someone recently about, and when I went to review the code, I was surprised that we didn't have any measure of what damaged was considered. So,
This is the revised language from the, on that particular section that you were asking about.
Including that's,
oh yeah, okay.
It's the
Yep,
last
it's the
one.
clean version.
Yeah.
So.
And so staff doesn't have any issue with no limits on size or number of accessory units in all non-residential districts? I mean, all non-residential uses and districts?
Structures.
That's what I mean, accessory, that's why I meant accessory structures.
Okay, just clarify.
Okay.
That is correct, because we have other items that will regulate how much can be on that site. Parking requirements, landscape islands, lot coverage, stormwater requirements, all those other things, once you apply them, you're only gonna be able to have one or two.
Okay.
What was problematic, one of the main reasons that we were doing this, is that a pergola with a patio beneath it is 2 accessory structures. We went to 1 at 100 square feet.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that. I was just thinking, big picture, like
Yeah.
warehouse use that wants outdoor
We
storage.
went down that same route, did some concept site planning. If someone wanted to do a detached garage for a industrial use because they want to keep a cleaner office, and yes, you can actually do this, and that's why we did appropriate setbacks.
We also tried to add in additional requirements for location of those accessory structures, and added in a requirement that accessory structures shall be equal or less than the footprint of the principal structure. So in no case can the accessory structures be greater than the size of the principal structure.
In addition to the setbacks, we're also covering with the allotment for lot coverage.
Correct. That still applies.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if they want to have a hodgepodge of very tiny accessory structures,
They could,
They
as long
could,
as it meets
yeah.
the lot requirements and the setback requirements for this, what we added.
What we're finding, they like to put a shed of a 10 by 15.
Can't do it.
Can't do it.
because of something that already exists as an accessory structure on that lot.
Or
Our
10 by
requirement
15
Size
is
is
too
too
large
large.
for our current code. 100 square feet is
10 by
very
10.
small when it
Gotcha.
comes to an industrial user, some of our commercial users. The freezers, that's not, the fridge and freezers are sometimes outside, are bigger than 100 square feet. So it didn't make sense in this particular instance, and now that we're starting to get some redevelopment along the corridors of like outdoor uses, dining, that's why we drafted some dining language. Everything you see out there right now is basically non-conforming.
Didn't we, probably before you got here, but I think, didn't we just enlarge the maximum size for residential non-accessory use, structures for that reason?
The chart was created, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't know, honestly, if it was increased, but I know it was clarified.
Yeah, I know there was a size limit. I remember at some point staff said this is too small.
Yeah.
It's smaller than, I think the whole conversation was basically, this is smaller than a Home Depot pergola.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
What I'm buying out of a box off of
Off
the shelf.
shed,
Mhm.
10 by 12.
Yeah.
So non-residential accessory structures were required to be smaller than accessory structures permitted on residential properties with our current code.
Do the math.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so. I'm just gonna ask instead of rereading. Said that accessory structures have to be set back 10 feet from rear and side, correct?
Correct.
Interior side. Does that include in districts when they're abutting residential uses?
Yes.
Residential districts?
Yes.
Okay. So a
And that's just this year.
Correct, yeah. But obviously, moving forward and all this is,
And we're currently sitting on a permit review application right now. Not making them go through the variation request.
just waiting for this,
We're running this forward and seeing how it goes.
yeah.
That's generally a good idea.
This was tracking faster than they would have gotten.
We've
from
gone
the
through.
Variation process, so they're really hoping that this gets a positive recommendation.
Right.
Mark, with regards to the replacement value calculation, under 3C, I mean, obviously, I think everyone on this commission's hope would be that everybody has adequate homeowners insurance to determine replacement value.
Yeah.
But in lieu of homeowners insurance or an adequate policy that is accurately prepared, what other methods would you be interested in of essentially asking them to just find a reasonable appraisal value and go to market for that?
Yes, great, that's actually a great question, because that's been part of the internal discussion of how do we enforce. Once it gets codified, now we actually enforce this and make sure our interpretation is locked in. So we wanted to treat it as, if not A, then B, if not B, then C, and if not C, then D, right? But we've also realized that in the last handful of years, an appraisal is only as good until you close, and then all of a sudden the market does what it does. And so if the market jumps by 10% and your appraisal tells you that you're valued 10% lower and you happen to have a fire, I don't want to be the guy that says, by the way, it's not as valuable as you thought, you can't rebuild the house you just bought. So we've actually going to interpret that it's any one of those. And so if the appraisal isn't good, we will take the equivalent of a comparable last sales of the last year. What does that average out to? It's that catch-all on the bottom one with the discretion of the director.
Then do you need an or included in there?
I thought we did with punctuation.
Or, sorry, or if it is not available. I see what you
Or,
mean.
yeah,
Okay,
so there's
okay,
or if
okay.
that's
Yeah,
not
you
available
did
on
condition
A,
all
B,
those.
and C.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Right, so you want to take the liability, and rightfully so, off of the village of determining the value for them. You want to rely on an expert in the marketplace to provide that for you. Totally understand that. So that situation where D falls into place, is that when you're basically saying,
Yeah.
go to market, bring me an appraisal
Give
to
me an
review?
appraisal,
Yeah,
if that's an alternative method.
yeah,
CMA from
Sure.
Realtor or Less Realtor. They're already in crisis mode, because they already, you know what I'm saying?
they
Like-
lost their structure.
Exactly, so how can we
Make it
work
worse.
with them and be empathetic at the same time so that it's not, now the village is the bad guy, right? We're here to help them, they're already out of their house. You guys see, we have fires in this community, we have an older housing stock, it is what it is, this comes into play.
Hopefully that, again, will never actually be the case because of adequately
Right.
insured.
Right, Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I second Commissioner Lucky. A lot of hard work went into this, a lot of diligence. You've done a fantastic job with it.
And you guys probably know, we've been over this before, once we go into one of the sections, we can't not see the thing. This started, and I'm not joking, with eliminating the word vertical.
I believe it.
And then once we got into nonconformities,
Look out.
we know that we have to notify by this date, and so let's do what we can, and it was time to make the corrections that we're seeing on a daily basis with permit requests and all that stuff, so we feel good about this. We've obviously communicated with some other municipalities on their best practices, what's going on, and this, with the 50% rule, it's so commonplace, shocking. that-
Yeah, I was surprised, and yeah, I'm sure that probably was just carried over from the zoning ordinance when,
Quite possibly, yeah.
because I know a lot of that more, I don't want to say technical, but less use-based
Yep, right,
language, a lot of that was carried over
Yeah.
and
yeah. Form-based codes don't address nonconformities.
No.
So this is classic zoning ordinance, non-conforming uses.
Yeah, and so that probably dates from 1970 or whatever year it was that our ordinance was enacted. All right, if there are no other questions or discussion, I guess I should say there's also no one here for public comment. Yeah.
I was going to ask Mark, I didn't want to. Nick Cazone, 21 West Adams. On that where it says 50% of the replacement value, it says the structure may not be repaired or replaced. Sounds like, okay, what are you going to do if you can't repair it or replace it?
That's if,
Should that or replaced be in
so
there?
that's if it's a non-conforming structure.
Ah, okay.
So if you could replace it, it would just have to be built to code.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Same with the use, if the building was destroyed and, yeah. All right, so if there's no other questions or comments, and I don't see any additional public comments, we need a motion with the amended text as well.
We're not reading it all.
You have to read every single.
Every single one.
Exhibit A plus the legal.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of PZ 2414 for a zoning ordinance text amendment as outlined in Exhibit A, conditioned upon acceptance of forthcoming revisions from the village's council.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second, any questions or comments on the motion? Roll call, Calvert,
Yes.
Hofstra.
Yes.
Lemieux,
Yes.
Budke.
Yes.
Swinsky.
Yep.
I too vote yes. With that, our recommendation passes to the village board.
Thank you.
Any other discussion items for this evening? Anything from the commission this evening?
No.
No public comments on non-agenda items? All right, motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.